Hey, what's going on out there today? This is Fuego Beach. You're listening to the What the Fuego show, and today I have a special guest, Marcia Hinds, from the book, author actually of the book "I Know You're in There." How you doing, Marcia?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming on. Just to give you guys a little background, Josiah. Obviously you guys know Josiah as an artist and also one of my close friends and a close friend of the show and station as well. Him and his wife Tammy actually introduced me to Marcia because, as you guys know, their oldest daughter has suffers with autism, and I don't even want to say suffers. She's going through things that we are going to change, and we're gonna definitely start with talking with Marcia and see how she did it with her son Ryan. So first, Marcia, I wanted to ask you what made you write the book?
Well, I wrote the book because when Ryan was first diagnosed, I was diagnosed with autism. You know, I was told there was nothing I could do, there was no recovery, and there was no hope.
Mm-hmm.
And this was from one of the leading experts in the Twin Cities area on autism. She's wrote buku books.
Okay.
And parents need to know that an autism diagnosis doesn't have to mean game over. Ryan is now an aerospace engineer, and I was told he would need to be institutionalized by these experts. But
Wow.
hopefully, I'm fortunate that they were wrong, but it wasn't easy. And his recovery wasn't miraculous, but the result of receiving proper medical care. Autism is medical and it's treatable, and I want my book to make people rethink autism. And if a child's health can be restored by treating hidden viruses and infections, then recovery becomes possible.
Yeah, and that sounds great. And as I didn't get through the entire book, I'm actually up to chapter 4, I believe now.
Well, that's enough to let you know what it's about.
Oh yeah,
Actually,
oh yeah.
for me, the part of the book that gives parents a glimpse is the preface and the foreword written by Ryan himself.
Oh, okay.
And if they go on Amazon and look up "I Know You're in There" or look up my name, which is spelled hard. It's not spelled the way most people would spell it. I'm a Marcia with a CIA, and I'm a Hinds. It looks like B. Hinds instead of Heinz ketchup.
Yeah.
And if you look up either of those on Amazon, my book will come up.
Mm-hmm.
And if you click on Look Inside, you can read the first few chapters. So parents can see if this is something that's going to help them or not.
Yeah. And we'll eventually, very soon, for you guys out there that's listening, we'll put on a link directly on fuegobeast.com and all our social media, so you can just directly click on it and go to the book on Amazon. And definitely check it out. It's really great so far. I got, my wife is reading it. We're gonna read it together, but I kind of like reading things by myself, but so I might finish it first and then.
So
give
your
it to
wife
her.
doesn't agree with that idea, huh? My husband doesn't like to write with me. He likes to write by himself, and I keep convincing him that we should really write together because we're funnier that way.
I guess, but I don't know. It's like working with my wife. I don't think me and my wife would be able to, because I've only been married 8 years now, and I don't know if we'll be staying married if we're this close, working together all the time. I don't know, because
I have to tell you, there's nothing like autism to put stress on a marriage. And my husband now, this year we hit 40 years.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And we ended up going back to the place where we had our budget honeymoon, Lake Tahoe.
Okay.
And, remembering all those great times. And we almost didn't make it through autism. And that's very typical for families dealing with this kind of stress. And, if I had known everything I know now back then, it would have been much easier. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I wrote this book, is so that parents don't have to spend so much time researching and learning, because there's too much information out there now. When I was doing this, there was no internet. I used to go to the library and read all night so I would know how to help Ryan.
Yeah, that's great. Dedication right there. Like, you didn't give up, and that should inspire us all for any issues we're having, any problems that we need to not give up. We need to continue to fight and learn as much as we can to try to help the situation. My second question to you is, when did you realize that Ryan, had a problem, and also when was he diagnosed?
Well, he was diagnosed at age 4. We knew something was wrong before then. And, I kept going to the pediatrician and saying, what's wrong with my kid? Because fortunately I had another child before him. And Megan was older, so I knew what kids were supposed to do at what time. I probably wouldn't have known that if I hadn't had Megan first. And the doctor really helped me with my denial. We're all in denial at first. We want it to be anything else but.
Yeah.
And so what I would do is I would convince myself that Ryan, he was going to be the next Albert Einstein, Bill Gates, or or Jacques Cousteau, because, Thomas Edison is also in that group, because they probably were all on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And they didn't, they had speech develop very late in life. They had a lot of the symptoms that our kids have. And it's so hard because, you want it to be anything else. And finally, it was Ryan's preschool teacher who came up to me and held my hand, and she said, Marcia, we need to talk. And her eyes kind of misted over as she told me, I think there's something wrong with Ryan. And I could no longer be in denial after that. That's when I went to the pediatrician and, asked him to send us to a specialist. And what I didn't realize was the person he sent us to was the leading authority on autism in the Twin Cities. So he probably knew all along that Ryan had autism. But he didn't realize, there was any kind of treatment out there. And that's still the way it is. The good news is that it's treatable. The bad news is that most physicians don't know it's treatable, and it's very difficult to find a doctor who knows what to do.
Yeah. That is crazy, because I honestly didn't think it was treatable until Tammy and Josiah actually sent me your information and we talked. I had no clue. I was just thinking it was something that we have to work with the children.
Right, and you can help them be better, but no, you can help them fully cover if you can. It's not easy because autism is complicated, and these kids have multiple medical issues. And, it's all the result of immune problems. And if you can help the immune system work better, then they can learn what they couldn't before. And, if you just do the medical, that's not enough either. You have to do, the medical only makes it possible for our children to learn. They need like an intensive rehab program to teach them all the things they miss. So that's why we have programs like Applied Behavior Analysis, ABA, Floor Time, Sunrise, RDI, Pivotal Response Training, and there's more of them. And they all work if you stick to it once your kid can learn. Now, what we did was our own version of Applied Behavior Analysis, or ABA, and we used what motivated Ryan to teach him the things he still needed to learn. So that meant, every lesson that we ever did with Ryan included something on computers, sharks, plugs, light switches, anything he was obsessed with.
I see.
To get his attention and help him learn.
Okay. And I guess I will hop down to it and ask the question of you just mentioned that the different interventions basically that you guys did, different techniques and everything. So is there any more that you would say? I guess my thing is, you just kind of answered it with you looked at what he liked to do, what Ryan liked to do, and you kind of honed in on that.
Well, we used it. He obsessed. Okay. If I had let him, he would have gone. What he loved to do when he was little is he'd go around it. He was obsessed with plugs and anything electrical, and the VCR. He loved to take keys and put them into locks. One time he took the key out the key ring, went into the garage, started the car, and went through all our storm windows that were lined up there. Fortunately, he and the garage were still intact after he finished.
Yeah.
But those were the kinds of things that would happen all the time. I mean, he had no apparent fear of death. That was another symptom he had.
Okay.
And, it was so stressful trying to keep him safe all day long. It's awful what you have to live with when you have one of these kids.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to say is all these interventions work once your kid is able to learn, once you've done some of the medical stuff that makes learning possible. And when my son was little, he would love to carry this portable radio all over the house and plug it in and out of every outlet. And he would go from room to room, flipping on and off the light switches.
Okay.
Those were some of the things that he did. If I had let him, he would have been content to do that all day long, and I could have done whatever I wanted all day long. But,
just let him be.
Yeah, but that's not what I needed to do. I needed to bring him kicking and screaming into our world.
Yeah.
And we used our own version of ABA to make that happen.
Okay, great. So I mean, with the interventions, how would you say, I guess using some that you just used, and is there anything else, or how if you're a parent, that has a child that has autism, how do they look for these interventions? Is it something that they need to just get with the group, or is there something
I think
you can refer them?
They need to do both the medical and the behavioral and educational interventions. They have to do a multi-prong approach and do them all together. And I think that's the mistake a lot of parents make. They either do the medical or they do the behavioral, and they don't do everything together. And just so you know, I made so many mistakes along the way, and it's a good thing that God allows U-turns. But the one mistake I never made was to give up. Okay, and it's really hard to be more stubborn than your kid.
Yeah,
because that's what it takes. It takes a never give up attitude, and constant working with them, morning till night. And I wanted anyone to do this for me, but you have to remember this was over 20 years ago, and there wasn't anyone doing anything like this in Minnesota. It's still hard to find a doctor who knows how to do this. And it's still hard. We had to fly someone in to train us how to do ABA. And I was so angry that I couldn't hire someone to do this for me.
Mm-hmm.
But it actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because Ryan got ABA throughout his entire day in the most natural way possible. So if he didn't know how to do something and we were in the grocery store, going down the aisles, school was immediately in session, and he learned how to do it, using those techniques in the most natural way possible. And ABA is just good parenting.
Yes.
And most people do it naturally.
Mhm. Mhm. That all sounds great, and like I said, I hope everybody that's listening. I was trying to. A couple of my neighbors one of my neighbors actually has a child that suffers from autism, and you try not to get into their life. You know what I mean? You try not to kind of nosy in.
Well, you can't.
But it's like
you
can't let it go. You feel like you want to, because they kind of let him just do whatever, just out, like you said, all the stuff you were just saying, but just let him do that so they could focus on all the other stuff they do, which is
it's very easy to do that, and I'll tell you why. I mean, I did that. I thought Ryan was relatively easy, in the beginning, and it wasn't until we started some of the ABA stuff that the hitting and aggressive behavior happened, because these kids want sameness more than anything. And what happens is we sort of learn what's going to make them have a meltdown or, a tantrum, and we tend to avoid those things. And, we don't do it on purpose. It's just sort of a thing that we fall into. And we don't understand how bizarre our kids' behaviors look to other people watching. Because we're used to them. We live autism day in and day out. And, even our relatives don't get it. They think that we're the worst parents in the world, and that, it's our parenting that's the problem.
Yeah.
And what I want parents listening to do is to repeat to themselves over and over again, autism is not my fault, till they actually believe it. It's not their fault. It's just something that happens. And I had one mom order like 7 copies of my book for all her relatives at Christmas. And she was going to wrap them up and give them to everybody. And I said, hey, she goes, you wrote what I feel, and I want them to understand what every day in autism hell is like.
Yeah. And that's really important. And I appreciate the fact that you took the time to do that, because you could have just kept this among you and your family. But you know what I mean? And just shared it amongst each other.
That's what happens. Kids who recover, their families go underground so their kids can lead typical lives.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, I do this all day long, and I do not make a dime off of this book. And I talk to parents all day long, because all profits from this book go to spread the word that autism is treatable. And, my husband's retired. I would love to go traveling and have fun, but I can't quite do that yet. I will, but it's too important that others know they can save their kids. And, it's so hard to keep doing this. I mean, I get rejuvenated. I just gave a talk at a library, and the parents in that room, it was the most interesting talk because it was very interactive. And, my other talks, it's me kind of giving out information and doing the PowerPoint and so on and so forth. But these guys were grandparents and parents, and they were so comfortable. They would stand up and add things, and they would ask questions in the middle of the talk. And, I mean, I loved it because it was so different than the ones I've given before.
Yeah, kind of like a workshop almost, right?
It was, and I decided that's the way they have to be in the future.
That's good. That's really good. We're going to continue this conversation. I just got to go to a short break. You guys, you're listening to What the Fuego with Fuego and Marcia Hinds. Please continue to tune in. We have some more great information. And don't forget to download our app in the Google Play Store, and that's WFBS 981 Fuego Beats Radio. We'll be right back.
Yo, it's Whitney Payton, and you're tuned in to Fuego Beats Radio.
All right, we're back. I'm here with Marcia Hinds, author of I Know You're in There, War Against Autism, or Winning Our War Against Autism, which we are winning. You guys need to pay attention to everything we're saying on this segment, or I might have to hurt you. No, I'm joking. But Marcia, we just was talking about few different kids that we all know that suffer from autism. Do you think this is becoming like an epidemic?
Well, I think that there are a lot of assaults on our children's immune systems that weren't there before. To me, it's total load. If your kid has too many things hurting their immune system, then they hit the tipping point and it becomes autism. So it's not really autism at all. It's just a collection of symptoms that look like autism that are the result of an immune system not working properly. So I think what's going on is, all our foods are processed. I am not Susie Homemaker. I used to feed my kid sun fruits for breakfast. I was not that kind of mom who was into healthy all the time. But if you look at the way our world has changed, we spray our yards, we give our kids 69 vaccinations by the time they're 18. It all adds up to total load on the immune system. I don't think vaccines cause autism.
Okay, I was going to ask you.
But I think they sometimes can create an extra stress on the body with those for kids who have compromised immune systems. And so it's a combination of all these things together that are the final tipping point. And sometimes just removing very simple things can have a big effect. Like for Ryan, we took out dairy from his diet. And I never thought diet had anything to do with autism. As a matter of fact, I didn't want to change the way we all ate, so I didn't even go there. But it was this very nice man who was an autism researcher, and his name was Dr. Bernard Rimland.
Okay.
And he was famous, you know, and I called the Autism Research Institute to have a question answered, and he answered the phone himself, which, if you think about it, you know, I should have been pretty impressed that I was speaking to Dr. Bernard Rimland, but I wasn't because I didn't know who he was at the time.
Yeah.
All I knew was he was kind and I was desperate. And he suggested that I remove dairy from Ryan's diet for a week and give him a glass of milk and see what happens. And to be honest, I thought he was a little nuts because I thought, what could a cow have to do with autism? You know, but it was an amazing change and very dramatic in my son. All of a sudden, the autism symptoms decreased in intensity and more. And it was my first clue that autism is medical and treatable. So, you know, if you can change a few things and remove some of the stress on their immune system, it can have dramatic results.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is fantastic. You know, because as you said, I mentioned this earlier, I didn't realize that, you know, diet either. You know, and diet plays a lot to do with a lot of things that are happening. I have anxiety, and so does my wife. And literally, if we eat, say we go to Burger King, McDonald's, and we do that 2 days in a row, my anxiety flares up a lot more than when I eat a nice salad, baked potato, broccoli, you know, and lean meats the week after.
Right.
And it's and the thing is, the same stress, the same things I'm doing do not change week by week. It's not like I went through something in week 1 and I did it in week 2. But the diet, and I started realizing that, and I didn't realize that before. I'm like, wow, it's crazy. Well,
you know, the pediatrician that we used to go to when Ryan was little, I asked him about diet, and he said to me, you know, I only got 30 minutes worth of nutrition in medical school, and I think, oh my God, how is that possible?
Oh yeah,
you know.
Yep. I heard that.
Because it has it plays part in so many things.
Yeah. And that's crazy, and that's why doctors, the first thing they do is hit you with all these prescriptions for medicine. And I asked the doctor, like, one of the pediatricians I had growing up, great guy, Charles Payton. Great guy. He was an athlete at UNC. Son played ball, everything. They were great people, that family. But he was like, you know what? I got to put you to a nutritionist because, honestly, doctors don't know that much about nutrition. But he was the only doctor ever to be honest like that and say, we don't know anything. We know certain doctors will do the extra mile and research it. But like you said, in medical school and in their studies, they don't really learn like that. And it's weird because you would think that would be an intricate part.
You would think so. And, you know, they also never got Autism 101 in medical school. So that's why if you go to your pediatrician and say, can you help me with the medical treatment for autism, they'll look at you like you're crazy because they were taught it's a developmental or psychiatric condition where nothing can be done.
Yeah. It's crazy, you know. And I guess I will I wanted to go into this part of the show because obviously, you know, I've talked to you, Marcia, and everybody that listens know how big we are on anti-bullying. So I know in your book, Ryan went through bullying, and I just want to know, you know, how did you handle that as far as between you, Ryan, and then how did the teachers and, you know, did they get involved to help out the situation, or, you know, what happened with all of that?
Well, you know, to me, that was the hardest chapter for me to write. And I had one dad who had a 3-year-old who said, I stopped reading your book at the bullying chapter. And I said, no, you can't stop because there's stuff after that you need to know. I said, skip that one and go on to the next one. You know, his kid was only 3 years old, so bullying wasn't really an issue yet. Yeah. But in middle school, it's huge. Yeah. You know, that's when kids are, you know, I think middle school should just be outlawed for all our kids. We they should skip that one and just go on to high school because they become nice again in high school.
You're
But
right.
in middle school,
You're right.
oh my gosh, it's horrible. And horrible things happen to Ryan in middle school. He was in a science class before the bell rang, and the kids made a circle, and they were pushing him back and forth and calling him retard and fag and any other thing that they could think of. And they called this the circle of pain. And you might ask, well, where was the teacher doing all this? Well, she was down the hall trying to prevent the bullying that was happening there. So I think it's a huge problem in all our schools, and I think it really needs to be addressed. And I think the only way to really address it is to teach the nice kids and empower them that they can stop it at any time.
Yes.
And that's how it's stopped, because you can't be everywhere all the time.
No.
Another thing that happened to Ryan, and, you know, I was kind of lucky because I used to be the costume lady in middle school, and part of the reason I did that was so that I could be there all the time and people wouldn't notice, you know, that I was really there to check on what was going on with Ryan and protect him.
Exactly.
So one time all the theater kids came to me and they said, you have to know what happened. And Ryan didn't tell me this, by the way, because he was way too embarrassed. And they told me that this kid in the biology class, okay, this was a brand new teacher, and he jumped up on the table where Ryan was sitting and simulated humping his face, okay, in front of the teacher and everybody. And my kid was mortified. And so when I found out about this, I walked into the principal's office, who, you know, didn't want to do anything about bullying because he didn't want anyone to know that it was a problem at his school. So I walked into his office and I said, so what are you going to do about this? And he says, oh, don't worry, I'm going to handle it. You know what he did? He brought Ryan in instead of the bully, because the bully was someone that would be hard to deal with. He had dealt with him many times. So he brought Ryan in and started interrogating him. And Ryan just said, I don't remember, because he didn't want, you know, you always remember something like that. He didn't want to be embarrassed, and he didn't want to talk about it. And instead of addressing it, this principal did nothing. And, you know, I brought him billions of anti-bullying programs. I asked them to please institute one of these. And, you know, I didn't want to sue the school because I didn't want to take any money away from the kids, but I should have, because I'm haunted by what happened next. After these boys were done with Ryan, they moved on to another kid. And that kid committed suicide.
Wow.
And I worry and I wonder if I had sued that school district, if I could have prevented that from happening. So everybody has to take a stand when this happens. And this principal was moving up to the high school where Ryan was going next. And that's when I said to my husband, I'm done trying to fix this. We're out of here. I'm going to protect mine now. And stop trying to protect all of them, which I think we all need to do. But the first priority was, you know, Ryan. And so we ended up moving to California, which was the best thing we ever did, because Ryan could reinvent himself in California. And he did. He did. He ended up going to a high school and totally changing who he was. It gave him a fresh start where he didn't have any history or, you know. So that's how we handled it. We ran away. And I don't know if that's the right way to handle it. I think the right way to handle it is to sue them and require, as part of the settlement, they institute anti-bullying programs in their school.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you do have to go, you have to take the child out of the situation. Because me personally, I can't say I was, you know, bullied like that or anything. I did see people bullied, and we all have been a product of some aspect of bullying. But I didn't like going, I'll be honest, I didn't like getting up for school. Like, if you told me school was at 7 o'clock at night till midnight, I'll be straight. I'll be good. I just did not like getting up at 6. But, yeah.
I didn't realize how bad it was for him.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought, I was really tuned in. But if you're bullied in that way every day, multiple times a day, it certainly affects who you are. And it really affected his confidence level. And, now it's even worse because of all of the social media. Because people can do it, anonymously.
Oh, yeah.
And they're very brave when they do it that way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They say all types of mean and horrible things. And
and for Ryan, sometimes when he came home from school, the bullying didn't stop because they would call him at home. And eventually Ryan stopped answering the phone, and he didn't want to talk on the phone. And for a lot of years, speaking on the phone was an issue for him because of the bullying that had occurred. And, thank goodness it's all gone now. And, he works at a major aerospace company right now. Nice. And one day his boss complimented him on his advanced, on his great people skills. So he immediately called me up. We both started laughing because, they never knew he was once severely autistic. Yeah. And for him to be that good at it now, he's the liaison between his company and the airlines. Yeah. And you have to have pretty damn good social skills in order to do that job. And, sometimes I just pinch myself, when I think about how it turned out for him. Because when he was in middle school, and even high school, my dream for him was that someday he could hold a job at McDonald's and live independently. Wow. I had no idea that he could reach what he has. And,
But that's
so I just want parents to know it's never too late to start the medical treatment.
Yeah.
There is a woman named Anne Milan who wrote Autism, Believe in the Future, and she didn't start treating her daughter Robin until she was 28 years old. Oh. And when Anne started this, all she wanted to do was stop the screaming and the self-injurious behavior. Oh. And now Robin has 2 jobs. She drives, and she lives down the street from Anne. And I think, oh my God, she is the perfect example of why it's never too late to start. Yeah. Help our children.
Yeah. I mean, it's really nice, like I said, to see people, go that extra mile. And a lot of the issue, and I can tell you of some of the ones I met, they sometimes, and me and you talked about this, when you come from a say lower education and lower income area or grow up like that, you just shrug it off. You like that. Well, that's that problem person. Like you always have an uncle that's in the room. Like, oh, that's Uncle so and so. He's right. A little off.
Exactly.
Let's just leave him in the room. And that happens a lot with, I don't even just say lower income, but I see it a lot with them because they just it's so busy doing other things. But you can't just do that.
And also they're intimidated by school personnel.
Yep.
I just had a partner in crime who knows so much more about the immune system than I do, Dr. Melinda Sharma. Yes. She has 20,000 Facebook followers because everybody, loves. She teaches Autism 101 Academy online on Facebook. And she is amazing when it comes to the medical. But I am the expert when it comes to the behavioral and the educational. And we work together to get this done for kids. And we've actually just written a new book called Sorry, But the Life You've Ordered is currently out of stock, Autism in Black and White. And it's going to be a funny gift book.
Yeah.
Hopefully that'll come out by Christmas. And all the illustrations in the book are done by Kyle Walsh, who has autism and is a gifted animator. So we're really excited about that. But Melinda just called me because she was having an IEP, and she didn't know quite how to handle what was going on there because they were doing things that weren't okay, and were against the law. And I said to her, Melinda, a lot of parents are afraid to ask or what I call get loud. Getting loud is what you do when you're in a store and you start speaking louder and louder, and everybody starts to notice, and the salespeople give you what you want because they want to shut you up.
Yes.
I said, that's the way it works in IEP meetings, too.
Yeah.
I said, you be very nice, and you be very polite, and you thank them for everything they're doing for your child, but if they don't do what's needed, you get loud. So I told her what she needed to do was document what happened at that meeting. And she needed to write the director of special education and just, tell her what happened. Yeah. She did. She sent the email. She immediately got a phone call from the director. And everybody who couldn't do what she needed immediately sent her emails with everything in place. Because they didn't want her to sue them. Yeah. And, sometimes you have to walk softly and carry a big stick. You don't want to be that mom who demands things that you don't need. But you want to be that mom who gets what your kid needs. And sometimes that requires what I refer to as getting loud.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree, and as I said, I appreciate everything that you all are doing. We will be here to continue connecting with you guys, support everything. One thing I wanted to...
I'm excited about us doing things together, Byron.
Yes,
I really am, because I think you're a kind of guy who makes things happen, and I have to make this happen for our kids. I have to, my goal is to get it out there so that parents know it's treatable, so that they don't give up before their kid gets help, because it is a marathon, and you have to keep at this for years. And my other goal is to get more doctors trained, because we need a doctor on every corner who says, I know what this is and I know how to treat it.
Exactly.
So those are the two things that I'm working towards, and you're helping me do right now with this interview.
Yes, and we'll, like I said, any information you have, we will share it. If you want to get on the show at any point, just let us know. Definitely, can you give your contact information that you would like, other people that may want to, ask questions or maybe get a little hint here and there how to help their children or somebody they know?
Right, and anybody who has a doctor who's open to training, I will mail them a book, that's what I do. But I don't want to mail them a book if they're going to shove it up on a shelf like I do when somebody gives them my book, when somebody gives me their book. They have to be open, and they have to be one who also want to read it, or I'll send one.
Yeah.
And one last thing I wanted to share with parents is that I kept talking to Ryan. He gave me nothing. Not a look, not a nod. All I got was a blank stare, like the lights were on, but nobody was home. But he was in there learning, even though he couldn't show me that. You have to keep talking to your kids no matter what. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until Ryan was better that I realized he had learned things from that constant chatter that I did with him. And so it's also important to never say anything negative about them when they are anywhere that they can hear. And remember, our kids have supersonic hearing, so they can hear things across the house when you think they can't. So hang in there, and remember, there's no magic bullets. I searched everywhere for them. There's no magic cure. We want our kids better before lunch, but it doesn't work that way. And we're easy targets for the snake oil salesman trying to sell us the cure of the week for autism. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Yes.
So please go to my website, and there's lots of information to help you there. It's www.autismandtreatment.com. And you can preview the book there as well.
Great. Thank you again for everything. Again, we'll keep contact. I will get all of us on a call with Bud from I'm Bully Free and the others, and we'll start making things happen.
And thank you for all you do for kids and bullying, Byron.
No problem.
You're amazing.
Thank you. And we're gonna be back with the rest of the show here. But again, that was Marcia Hinds, author of I Know You're In There. All right, so you guys pick up the book and definitely continue to tune in. And then, share your stories with us as well. You can email us at info@fuegobeats.com. But we'll be back with the rest of the show.
You're listening to Fuego Beats Radio, the #1